right. Welcome to the Unfazed, Unedited podcast, where we provide commentary on complicated topics in an uncomplicated format. I'm Dr. Shaunna Payne Gold, and I go by she, her, hers pronouns. And Dr. Lisa, I'm hoping that people can't hear it, but the rain is like pouring down in a sheet off my roof. So when I look out my back patio, I literally could not see like 5 feet away through my window. So hopefully it's passing over and it won't cause any problems. But how are you doing today?
Still hot, same as last week. But the excitement at my home today is that there's a little bunny that managed to get into one of my window wells. I don't quite know how they got in because the window well is covered by a cage. There's a very small gap between the end of the window well and the window, so the bunny would have to have gotten in this really small place. So now I just put some the lid of a kind of tub in there and then this other thing in the hope that the bunny will climb out, but no luck
Help
yet.
itself to climb out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of rabbits around here. The boys call all the rabbits Mr. Hoppy for some reason, like all
Oh,
of
I
them
love it.
are Mr. Hoppy. But I'll have to send you a video. I had a video last week where my camera usually goes off regularly because my house is very close to my neighbor where he has a shed there. So sometimes he's just working in the shed. But when it goes off at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, what's going on behind my house?
Hmm.
One of the Mr. Hoppies runs behind my HVAC, which normally I have bunnies leisurely hopping because they're looking for food. But this one was sprinting behind my HVAC. And what comes around the corner behind it? A fox. I'm like,
Oh.
oh, okay. We got Wild Kingdom going on back here this morning. Okay. But I'll send you the video. It's quite fascinating. But I have a little bit of everything in my backyard. So yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Well, let's dive into the word of the week. All right, Dr. Lisa, I have been falling in love with this particular content person on Instagram. Oh my goodness, they could change the culture with this Instagram account, I think, because it's called Pink Pill RS, as in the color Pink Pill RX, like a prescription. And the account does nothing but put a really tight shot on a gentleman in the conversation. She's speaking or voicing over what she's saying off camera, and she's getting his reaction to a realization of differences between genders. And so I'm loving watching the arc of his responses to these words, but let me give you an example of one of them in particular. One of the words that just came up pretty recently was semantic derogation. Okay. I had to practice saying that
Okay.
derogation.
Hmm.
Semantic derogation. It is this linguistic phenomenon where a word's meaning shifts over time and it acquires a negative or diminished or insulting connotation that it didn't have originally. So it
Hmm.
heavily impacts the terms associated with women in particular, minority groups, or, you know, it normally reflects or reinforces some type of societal bias that's already out there in some type of power dynamic. So she gives examples of how this shows up in our language. And Lisa, I know you are a communications person, so you'll probably think of more to add to this list of examples. But one of the examples is mistress versus master, right? It used to simply mean that they're not hitched, they're not married to anyone. That's it. Master and
Hmm.
mistress. That's it. Unmarried. Unmarried word for a man, unmarried word for a woman. We
Hmm.
all now know how mistress is usually applied. It, yes,
Yep.
is still a woman, but regardless of marital status, this is a person that is, the outsider in participating in a man's affair as a partner.
Hmm.
Now, what's interesting, I almost wouldn't have a problem with language shifts because language shifts over time anyway in the English language,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it always shifts negatively, and it rarely, if ever, has a male equivalent to it. So we
Mm.
don't have a special word for men who are an
No.
affair partner to a woman, right?
Right.
Interesting. Same thing with bachelor versus spinster, right?
Mm.
Bachelor, again, unmarried. Spinster used to
Yep.
be also unmarried, but now it's not only unmarried, but again, speaks of women, speaks
Mm-hmm.
of negatively aging, a social failure in that, oh, they're a spinster, meaning they were not successful in being
Yep.
partnered to someone. See how interesting it is where it directly
Mm-hmm.
affects the women or minoritized groups, and it usually does not have a male equivalent. And so with that, I'm like, this is so interesting to me because language language goes where we take it. And when people start looking at language and the roots of language, I think we'll
Mm-hmm.
be, I can't say we're going to be pleasantly surprised. I think we're going to be shocked in many ways. But Lisa, you might have some other language that is slid over time, but this clearly is a slide for that doesn't affect us positively. Again, as usual.
Yeah, as usual. I mean, I'm not none are coming to mind, but the way that there are gender pairs in language and the um,
Mm-hmm.
female or woman side of the pair is like systematically um, diminished, right, in comparison to
Mm-hmm.
the men's side of the pair. That's not necessarily over time, but that's just an existence. So this adding the over time piece is super interesting to me that you have neutral
Mm-hmm.
terms, gendered but neutral, and then
Mm-hmm.
over time the women's part of that becomes negative or has a negative connotation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't language, right? But we've talked about how older men with gray hair, particularly movie stars, actors, are considered
Yeah.
desirable and wise and, you know, still
Mm-hmm.
still easily castable in movies, whereas women, as they get old, see less and less opportunities. They're considered over the hill, like nothing more to offer. And so you don't see a lot of middle-aged to older age women in movies,
Mm-hmm.
comparatively to men.
That's right.
So
That's
there's
right.
not a that's not a word necessarily, but it's kind of a manifestation of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And there's, plenty of other examples. I won't be able to get into all of them, but, we see it all the time. Like, for example, queen, um, previously meaning a female monarch, but now it's evolved in such a ways that depending on how the community claims it, it can
Yeah.
refer to a gay man or it can be reclaimed by the
Hmm.
LGBT community, but it has slidden from one definition to another,
Yeah. Yeah.
affecting a minoritized group. Or we talk about this all the time, Lisa, about girl and how girl is used versus boy is used, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
walk around calling grown women and even women of a certain age, we still call them as girl. And it's not out of a term of endearment for a lot of people,
Mm-mm. No.
right? So there's a number of them, but I want y'all to be aware. This is one of those one of those episodes where you can't unhear it anymore. Once we've
Yeah.
shared this with you, hopefully you'll pick up on some that are around you. But just think about how, yes, language can and probably will continue to shift, but how is it disproportionately affecting certain groups negatively? And you may be a member of those said groups. So be aware of those.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right. All right, let's get into phase one. Lisa, I think I fell for the banana in the tailpipe when it comes to some of the many social media accounts that I follow because
Okay.
I am a big foodie. So I love looking
Hmm.
at recipes. I like to cook. The boys like to eat home cooked food. And so with that, you know, if you don't switch it up a little bit, you can get bored. And so I'm always looking for ideas and so forth. And so many moons ago, I started following Nara Smith's account.
Hmm.
And I would follow, it was just so very interesting because I'm like, there's a reason as to why she's branding her content in this particular way.
Hmm.
She is a model. She would dress in ways that would seem outlandish to most people. Like literally putting on a ball gown, Lisa, to make sourdough bread, or, you know, putting on some elbow length gloves and a gorgeous dress to, you know, make a salad or whatever it is, right? And she uses this very low tone of voice as well. I don't even know if it's her natural voice or not, because I didn't follow that closely. I just want the recipe, right? And so lo and behold, I find that she is one of several different women that are, I can't even say anymore that they're trad wives. They are selling the idea of being a traditional wife through their influencer branding. Okay. So hopefully you're holding on to that
Yeah.
piece of it through their
Yeah.
branding. And Susan Hyatt, who, shout out to Susan Hyatt, I will tag you on this post. Susan Hyatt, I got to know her through entrepreneurship conference and program and books, and been following her for several years now. But she brought this up, and I thought we should talk about it, Lisa, given gender dynamics here. She uses the examples, three examples: Nara Smith, another, Hannah Neeleman, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and Savannah Stone. I am not familiar with these other two ladies, but let me give you some of the details about their branding and so forth. All three of them are self-employed content creators. They make money off of the trad wife aesthetic. And so Hannah Neeleman, whose account is called The Ballerina Farmer. I am not a follower. I just found out about this maybe a week ago. Well, she don't need me because she got 20 million followers without you and I, Lisa. 9 children, a staff, a product line, married to son of the man who founded JetBlue, Lisa. Okay. So we got yet another example. And then our third example, Savannah Stone, who built an audience telling women to submit to their husbands, was described as a stay-at-home mom, and also is a content creator who works from home. She sells a paid membership teaching about the concept of women submitting, right? I mean, she even has a premium tier to these teachings on submission. So,
Oh my goodness.
to say, and also to, we won't name the organization, but just know that an organization that has gone to many campuses, colleges, and universities
Mm-hmm.
to be on stages talking to young women about this lifestyle, if you will. Interestingly enough, all three of them pretty much have the same thing in common, that each one of them owns a business that's built on the promise that a woman doesn't need a business,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
separate life, or any of that. All she needs is her said man, husband, partner, what have you. So, Lisa, I found this so interesting, where I was like, oh my God, did I fall for the banana in the tailpipe with this? Because I have been following Nara for years. God bless one of her children. One of her children was diagnosed with some form of cancer. So my heart bleeds for that piece of things. But I'm also very aware that these three, and probably others, are
Yep.
selling something they're not, like, it's incongruent. It's incongruent. And Lisa,
Right.
the reason why it came up for me, yes, definitely about the gender piece and so forth, but also too about, these folks are not politicians, obviously, but we have, Lisa, talked about some of the
Mm-hmm.
integrity pieces of what you're selling and what you're doing, what you're saying and what you're doing, and how this is completely out of alignment. And so, as we talked about those in a previous couple of previous episodes before, I'm thinking, ooh, they're not politicians, but this is a similar sentiment of misalignment here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit before about generally only wealthy people that can do this trad wife thing, because who has time to make cornflakes from scratch, you know? Um, so it's funny that you bring this up because I had just recently finished the book Yesteryear, which is about a trad wife. It's like the massive hit. It's been very contentious, like top New York Times bestseller in the last like 4 months. Anne Hathaway's already bought the rights to the book. And my friend who lives in Utah said that there's speculation that the character in the book was based off of uh, Hannah Nealman, who that ballerina farm is in Utah. And I'd never heard of Ballerina Farm until about 2 days ago when my friend sent me some pieces about it. But I guess the author has come out and said no, that it's not based on that. But um, it is. I don't think the average person that's following these women is really making that connection that they have a multi-million dollar business while also saying, um, be a traditional wife and make everything from scratch and just have many babies and look after your kids, right? Um, so there's, part of what Yesteryear covers is um, the main character isn't particularly likable, and I don't think that's a reason to dislike the book. I mean, I think that was intentional. Um, but she has like 6 children. They're on a farm, right? And it's kind of the ways in which women submit or internalize these messages around what it means to be a good wife, and yet there's no equivalent for men necessarily, and kind of the pressure around that. So there are, if you get caught in the algorithm on Instagram, Shaunna, you will have people giving video reviews of it from all walks of life, all racial identities, all genders, and it is like some people are like, it's so deep and layered and there's so much there, and other people are like, this is an awful book. So I definitely am thinking about it, but that piece doesn't come up in the book. The incongruence between her making all this
Mm-hmm.
money and being in the book, she's married to the son of a senator. Um,
Okay.
so also a good amount of money.
Mhm.
Yeah, I I find this so confusing in some ways because I want for women to feel like they have all options available to them. And one of those is
Mhm.
this quote unquote trad wife, sans the multi-million dollar business and Instagram account, right? Like doing
Mhm.
that. But I just can't escape the fact that that is a primary message that girls and then women receive. So if you choose that, are you really choosing it? Because there's a lot of programming you get early on in life that that's the way to be, particularly if you are in a highly religious community. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
so yeah, I don't really know how I feel about it, but it's so curious to me. And I
Mhm.
think I know who Nara Smith is. I think I've seen her. I think she might have been the person that was making cornflakes from scratch for her kids
I'm
one morning.
sure when you said that, I was like, I think there was a link where
Yeah,
a post where she did
yeah.
that. But and even still, I'm not, as you know, Lisa, I'm not necessarily opposed to women making their own money or any of that. I'm just simply saying I'm not a fan of posing what you're not and then selling it. Like to me,
Yeah.
it's, and we see, and we could pick any other, we could pick any other field. Like it could be, you know, some, you know, somebody who's broke leaning up against a Lamborghini and snapping a picture and saying, you too can live the big life. Like that would be incongruous for me too. So, or vice versa. I've complained about this before where um, younger generations, they're still adults, but younger generations of people positing themselves as being unhoused and homeless when it's a choice that they're making for content
Mm-hmm.
purposes, not
Mm,
because they are in a particular situation. I have a problem with it going both directions. So it's not about
yeah.
the dollar signs with it. My challenge is with the both and of it. Like even with what's her name? It's another one that I watch on Food Network where gosh, she's out in Oklahoma, red hair, I can't remember her name. Well, she does have a little bit of that trad wife feel, but she's at a different place and phase in her life where she was a trad wife for many, many moons. And now she's gone into entrepreneurship. So imagine being a trad wife for, 15, 20 years and then saying, look, I know how to cook. I know how to work on a farm. I know how to do all these different things. Let me turn that into a business. These are younger generations where I'm like, were you a trad wife for like 5 minutes and then decide to build a business? And if you did, that's fine, but don't make it seem like you have decades of experience being a trad wife.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Mm-hmm.
here we are, come join me. You're not a trad wife anymore. You groom, I'm using groom in a very particular way. You groom and educate trad wives, which you no longer are one.
Mm. Yeah.
I just feel like something's off. Something's off, Lisa. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but something's off.
No, I mean, I think it's a really, really good point. Because I too am supportive of women who are building their own business, self-employed, right? They're making a ton of
Right.
money. Good for them. But to
Mhm.
sell that, yeah, it is. And is that incongruence understood by the millions and millions of followers, the people that buy their cutting boards and various like lines of cookware and stuff, you know? Like,
But you know what? Let me. So there's, okay, this is hidden for me in a different way. Let me explain where I'm going here.
okay.
One of my classes for my fellowship right now, we're in a summer class where we're looking at social entrepreneurship in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Social as being benevolent. I wouldn't put these ladies in that category, but let me
Yeah,
give you the
yeah.
concept. The concept was the difference between being a benefactor and being a customer, meaning that a benefactor is the person who benefits from it. The customer is the person that pays or that's willing to pay. So let me give you an example of
Okay.
that. The benefactor of a college admissions consulting firm, the benefactor would be Trey getting into college. But I'm the customer because I'm paying for it, or me and dad, or we're the customers that are paying for it. And I feel like it's something parallel going on here with this is that, remember, if they're truly a trad wife, guess who's paying for these memberships and these classes on submission?
Right.
They are, what do you call it? I wouldn't even say benefactor necessarily, but they're the ones that receive something, but who's really paying, right? The husband or the partner, the male partner, whomever, it's their money. So of course, as
Mm-hmm.
a customer, they're willing to pay because what do they get? A submissive wife, a wife that's under their control, maintenance
Mm-hmm.
of their power in the household. So they're willing, yes, honey, go away to whomever out of the three of these ladies. Wife, go away to their conference that costs $10,000 because that is an investment. I am a customer, a paying customer for you to remain submissive to me. So I'm willing to pay for
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're also the women are also like they're benefiting as from a lie, right? Or that maybe that's too strong. From a they're obfuscating the reality, I guess. Um and
There you go.
yeah, and yeah, it's so interesting. That framing is
Mm-hmm.
so interesting to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah. This
Hmm.
is for our listeners. This is one of those. I mean, we have many episodes where our response is not cut and dry,
Mm,
but these are like, oh, interesting. We support women entrepreneurs. We support women having choice as to how they want their families to be set up. And at the same time, we're looking for people with integrity. We're looking for alignment all at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah.
And all those things may bump heads against one another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, I'm thinking, oh, I may have fell for the banana in the tailpipe, but at the same time, maybe I didn't. Maybe the only thing that I need to take away from such individuals is the damn recipe and keep it moving. I don't know. I don't know. I
You
don't
know
know.
what it reminds me of is like one of those multi-level marketing schemes. where you
Ooh.
have that were targeted on women in particular that were stay at home. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you would have the person say, like, well, Tupperware is a great example, right? Here,
Mm-hmm.
my income is dependent on how many people I can recruit to sell Tupperware. I take a piece of their sales and so on, and that's the
Yes.
multi-level. And so, in some ways, it feels a little like that. You have these women who are marketing an aesthetic or a way of life, but there's a price attached to it because there are these classes or various products that are being sold, and their wealth is dependent
Mm-hmm.
upon recruiting all these other women into this image, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's really interesting too. That just popped into my head.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, it's not, we're going to be very candid with y'all. It's not like Dr. Lisa and I, where we produced this podcast. And really, there are very few hands, other than the wonderful Nisi, that downloads some things and takes care of our newsletter. But beyond that, there is no big, huge team that's going on behind the scenes to deliver this fantastic content to y'all. That's not how this works, right? And part of it is by choice, right? But at the same time, we've never we've never portrayed something that we were not. We just
Right,
haven't.
right.
I mean, we even
Hmm.
talked about this when with the reboot of this podcast going to unedited. That's the whole reason why it's now called Unfazed Unedited, was because we wanted to be in alignment with our values about
Yeah.
business and about podcast production and keeping this woman owned, minority owned,
Hmm.
woman and minority driven. We've
Yeah.
been very clear about that from day one. Now, if it was something different, we would have said so, but here we are. So I just think
Yeah.
it's something to be said about the lack of alignment. Like, at least we know, I know we're going to get flagged for this. At least we know Elon Musk is exactly who he says he is. He's a trillionaire and he wants to keep making money by any means necessary. So at
Yeah.
least we know. But to say one thing and do something else, to me, I'm like, I don't know if that's a different level of sinister, but it is. It's different to me, I think. So,
Mm, mm.
all right, let's get into phase two.
Okay, so we're going in a different direction with phase two. So you may remember some time ago, a young person, Colt Gray, went into school in Georgia and killed a number of people with an AR-15, I believe. And what was interesting about this case was his parents were also charged, prosecuted, with essentially aiding and abetting. That was not the charge, but the dad was recently convicted. So he was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and reckless conduct and a few other things. And each of those convictions came with a number of years imprisonment, and the judge kind of collapsed them. So they're all going to be served concurrently, and it's 15 years. The dad had bought Colt a gun, I think. And the parents knew he had the gun taken to school or something, and they knew that there were issues and they didn't do anything about it. Like they didn't remove the gun. That was all part of it. And I have started doing some work around gun violence prevention, some research and evaluation around gun violence prevention. So I was curious about this because I think you and I did talk about this when it first happened about the culpability of the parents. And I was trying to find what happened to the mom because they were tried separately and I can't remember. But recently, I guess, um, the mother had been like trying to connect her son who is in prison with his quote unquote fans or something. And it seems very sketchy and problematic. But I wanted to talk more at length about this idea that a parent or a guardian can be held accountable for their child's behavior, in this case, mass murder. Um, and whether you think 15 years is too much, too little, and you know, I think it's complicated. I'm not, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I do think it's complicated. And, at the very same time, this is one of those cases where, like you said, so the dad supplied the kid with the gun. All right, we're clear on that piece.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is a clearer cut case than a kid acquiring a gun. And especially if the gun acquired is never in the home or never comes in the home, or, maybe, I don't know, it's at a friend's house, it's hidden in a bush and they go, I don't know. But I'm just saying there can be times and ways that, and I know this should be like 1% of the time, in my opinion, there are times where parents truly don't know something that's going on. So I want to give space for that. But it may be quite surprising to a lot of our listeners, but yes, I do think that parents should be responsible in some way, shape, or form. Part of that is, for me, well, let me be very clear on my bias as I'm making my opinion on this. Y'all know I come from Southern Virginia, where having firearms, guns, weapons around is nothing. If you walk into my house right now, I have plenty here. And my children know where they are, and they know what they can and should be used for and what they should not be used for, and so forth and so on. We have lots of gun education here. And for those who may not be parents or don't have young people in their lives, it's even a question that's asked when you take your kid to the pediatrician around, do you have guns in the home, et cetera, so forth. So it's something that obviously there's much more work to be done, but it's not a irrational conversation that needs to be had. I mean, I've even seen some parents where, let's say, Lisa, for example, the boys are spending the night at your home. It is a very legit question for me to ask, hey, do you have any firearms in your home? I think that's fair. Or even, asking, that's like asking if someone has an animal in their home. There might be an allergy, there, so forth. You're asking questions for the safety of the kiddos. All right, so fast forward. With this, what I think is interesting is that my challenge becomes, this very much reminds me of the many times that my children witness other kids with bad behavior and they don't say a mumbling word. They look at me with that look like, even if we wanted to, we ain't getting away with that shit at mom's house. We're not getting away with this with our mother. Our mother is not built that way. Your parents may be built that way, but our mother is not built that way. And so with that, my question then becomes, for parents that don't know their kid has a gun or another weapon, and also aren't aware if it came over the threshold of their home, some of this is very much awareness of your kid.
Right.
So for example, I was not raised, and I do not raise my children to think that their room is a private place. No, it is not a private place. So gosh, I forget what case that was, but the kid was building a freaking bomb in his bedroom and nobody knew that shit. I'm like, what?
Right.
I mean, even if you tell your kid to clean their room, parents know that kid clean and parent clean are two different cleans. You're still going to go in there to check things out. You're still going to move things around, or something as innocent as maybe you're taking laundry in there or whatever, and you see something. So the fact that it's so unconscionable for some parents to even see anything, to me, is mind-boggling. That goes for their room. That goes for any room that they hang out in. That goes for any bag, backpack, book bag that comes in the house. No, sons, I don't need to have a full conversation with you to go through your backpack. And usually parents aren't even going through something. They're going to put something in your bag so you don't forget, or, hey, you told me to check your homework. I'm going in your backpack to get your notebook. Even if you're not as vigilant about your kids' space and what they bring, you're still going to run across certain things. So with that, how is it that parents different from this don't know? So to me, I'm like, okay, this feels quite a bit like neglect. When it's a kid that you don't know even has a weapon and has not spoken of a weapon. This is different because the parent gave them the doggone weapon. All right, that's a little bit different. It was supplied by you specifically. Okay, fine. But for those that are just I'm just thinking to myself, what kind of, and I know this sounds so judgmental, but it's true. It's like, what kind of oblivious parenting is going on here? I'm not saying you got to do military room inspections. I'm just saying that even if you're just doing basic maintenance of your own home, you're going to run across something.
Mm.
So I don't know, that to me, I feel like someone needs to be held accountable given some more variables in the situation. I'm not saying
Yeah,
it's going to be
yeah.
cut and dry. I'm just saying there needs to be something involved here.
It's interesting, right? Because, boys and then young adults' brains mature more slowly than they do for girls and young women.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's 26 perhaps that the boy's brain reaches full maturity, and this kid was younger than that. And so
Mm-hmm.
you think about the developmental science, and so you could say they didn't fully understand the consequences of their actions. I don't know how I feel about that. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
so, to your point, like if you have an attentive parent who's paying attention to the mental health of their child and what they are or are not doing, then there is ample opportunity for intervention, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
guess the mother was not charged, and I didn't remember this, but the
Mm-hmm.
DA said they couldn't tie her criminally to the murders, the son's murders, because at the end of the day, she did not have custody of Colt. She did not have proximity to Colt, and she was not the one
Mm-hmm.
that provided him the firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Colt Gray, a couple of weeks ago, received sentences in life without parole plus 20 years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so the son who committed the murders and then the dad who gave him the gun were both convicted, but the mum was not. And this is interesting because there were allegations of drug abuse and child neglect against the mother, Marcy Gray, and that was well established after the son, before the son committed the murders and then subsequently entered guilty pleas, because
Mm-hmm.
that's why she lost custody. And
Oh, okay.
but
Mm-hmm.
what popped up recently is let me just read this from the CNN article. The prosecutors played essentially calls, jailhouse calls between Colt and Marcy spanning months, where they chatted casually about mass killers and his online reputation, statements that drew groans and widened eyes from victims' family members who were watching, because this happened in court.
Mm-hmm.
So
My goodness.
now they're arguing, now there's a contingent that's arguing, like even though she didn't have custody, and I think she had asked the dad to take the gun away and he hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this behavior that they now have on recorded um telephone calls with Colt while he's imprisoned is kind of representative of the abuse and neglect that originally led to her lack of custody. But like, how do you then what is the mechanism to hold accountable those kinds of conversations, which might have been happening previous to his decision to go and commit a mass shooting, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that's not giving him a gun, but that feels very supportive or like egging him on, kind of, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If they're, yeah, depending on the, how can I say, depending on the tone, and it sounds like it was kind of like this casual, almost joking tone to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, especially if you've already asked for any type of firearm to be taken from him. Mm, that feels a little complicit.
Okay, listen to this. So, in another conversation, Marcy Gray brought up an online drawing showing Colt alongside the Columbine shooters and the Parkland gunman in the style of a Weezer album cover. She is recorded saying, "It's really awesome." Shauna
Girl,
is
what are you
shaking her
doing?
head for those who
What
are
are
just
you?
listening. Yeah.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
So I don't know. This just makes me think then, great, she didn't have custody of Colt prior to the shooting. But what were the verbal communications that were happening between her and her son?
So, okay, so this is what I'm hearing and interpreting, and
Okay.
go with me there. What I'm hearing and interpreting is the determination has to be based on the amount and type of influence that the parent has. Because having such conversations, that's an influence on the child.
Mm-hmm.
Supplying the actual weapon is an influence on the child.
Yeah.
And so with that, who's responsible for what influence? Her hands are not completely clean of this then, if those were the types of conversations that were being had. And now that doesn't mean that conversations don't come up, so forth and so I'm gonna give y'all a quick example. I'm just giving you a little bit. I'm not giving in details because it's my kid. So my kid, I'm not going to give you the specifics on my kid, but in that instance, my kid had been bullied by some specific folks, and it was on record, it was recorded in both directions, the type of bullying, right? A bit later, my son in a notebook had written down, quote unquote, a hit list, right? Of the same people that were involved in the
Mm-hmm.
bullying situation that were on a quote unquote hit list. Now, Lisa, I know we're again lighting the match at the gas station versus lighting the match to light a candle. In our
Mm-hmm.
context, we hear hit list and we know what we think initially in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
context. Trey was thinking, no, I just want to hit him to get this off my chest. I just want to punch him in the face and then I'm done. I'll move on. No, I'm not condoning violence of any form, whether it's with the firearm or it's with your fist. But at the same time, it was interpreted as I'm frustrated and no one's doing anything about the
Right.
bullying. So do I have to take this into my own hands? Well, we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation talking about heavyweight fighters, and this is how you really give somebody a good uppercut.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like we more so said, okay, this is how you move differently so that you don't have to be engaged with these students. This is what you do as far as if anything comes up, how to de-escalate and also to report. We
Mm-hmm.
had those types of conversations with him. And then after that, not to say that school doesn't have its challenges, but we didn't have any more bullying problems after that. So it is a matter of, are
Yeah.
you, we talk a lot about de-escalating things, but it also sounds like mom was somewhat complicit in escalating things because you're having more conversations about it. Like if I'm literally saying to my kid, oh, well, you have better aim if you shoot this way, but then saying
Yeah.
that you're not involved if something happens.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, the conversations pre-mass murder are unknown. These are post, but certainly make me wonder. Um, it just, yeah, just
It's
really effed
normalizing
up.
behavior. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
normalizing the behavior after the fact, though.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Which
And
if we're thinking about, because 15 years will come and go, if we're talking about any type of recidivism conversation or any type of personal transformation and you're still talking about it like it's a joke, that ain't good either.
yeah, I don't know whether he'll get out on parole. I mean, life plus 20 years, he might be in there for the rest of his life, but dad'll get out
Yeah.
and mother is out. So, because she
Yeah,
didn't get
quite possibly.
prosecuted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah, I think those conversations have been shut down because the Department of Corrections or the juvenile justice system realized they were happening. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just so thorny, right? The degree to which you
Yeah.
can hold a parent accountable. Maybe this situation is more clear cut because there are many parents of children who have committed mass murder, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there hasn't been encouragement or the providing of a gun, right? And so then
That's right. That's right.
where's the line for parental or guardian or family accountability? I don't have a good answer for that, but I do think it's interesting
No,
in this case where mom
it
is
is.
didn't get prosecuted, but dad did and got 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. There was, I'm throwing back, Lisa. I remember when there was, you were just jogging my memory. So when I was in my doc program studying higher ed specifically, that was also the same time period of the Virginia Tech massacre. And I remember people asking this question even back then in 2007, around what's the responsibility of the shooter's family. The shooter's family was an immigrant family that had brought him here when he was 8 years old, so forth and so on. Well, the especially based on their culture, the shame of it was enough to push them into hiding. But I was looking real quick to see if the family actually left the country. But I do remember that they were immigrants here. And, for some people, it's like, okay, lots of variables could make life very tough for both of the parents moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether they were locked up a day or a minute, it societally, it would be quite challenging. Societally.
Yeah.
So, and depending on your profession and, all those other things, it's going to be, it would be very hard to matriculate. I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but it would be very hard. Very hard.
So, I mean, ongoing food for thought. We'll see how this plays out with the mother or the dad's appeal. I guess they gave notice they are going to appeal the sentence. So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, look, the only walk away lesson learned thought to that is this very much reminds me, Lisa, of in higher ed where we talked about advising, and people used to use the language of intrusive advising when you're very assertive with the student and so forth, and how it was pretty much seen more so as a HBCU thing rather than a PWI thing. At a HBCU, intrusive advising doesn't even have that label because it's normalized, versus at a PWI, it's not. Be up in your damn kids' business. Be all up in their business. Your job is to protect them. Your job is also to protect them from themselves. Your job is also to protect them and those that they engage with by setting a standard. No, they do not. All the conversation about gentle parenting, y'all want to talk about all that shit until somebody gets shot up somewhere. No, and that doesn't mean you can control every minute of every day of your child, but you do set a context for your child. I have an entire gun safe, gun rack, everything of firearms that were gifted to me after my grandfather's passing for hunting and all kinds of things. And thank God they are so respectful of that stuff. They don't even go past the room because they know how it can either help people or hurt people. They know what the purpose of it is. They know how to, be respectful of things, especially because it would be like having a lead glass vase in your home that's an heirloom from your grandmother or something. Like, we treat them as heirlooms, not as weapons in our home. But that took context and conversations around setting that up so that they aren't used in certain ways that can be harmful. Be up in your kids' business. Be in their business. It's in your house. Even if there wasn't any law that directly held parents accountable, your kids are in your house that you pay for and you take care of. Now, if they're grown, we got a different podcast. But if they're of a certain age, especially as their brain is still developing, my kids know, no, you cannot have any funny business in your room, in your closet, in your backpack, or in your phone. Why? Because none of it belongs to you. None of it belongs to you. And it's not that we're going to have a I gotcha moment. It's more so of saying, our brains as parents have developed enough to make sure that we're guiding you in the right, safe direction for yourself and those that are engaged with you. We are raising you to be kind, loving, and aware kids. Yeah, there may be a moment in time where you need to protect yourself, but even that has context.
Yeah.
Come on, y'all. So yeah, be all up in your kids' business. We are, and not apologetic for it at all.
All right. Parenting advice from Dr. Gold. Be up in your kids' business.
Be up in your kids' business. All up in your business. All right. Well, that was a good one. See, we keep finding these topics that are just so gray when it comes to, not having a resolve to it, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a wrap for this week's episode of Unfazed Unedited. Please make sure that you follow us on all the social media accounts and use your favorite podcast apps to find us at Unfazed Unedited with un around those first brackets around the first un. Please email us at info@unfazedpodcast.com or just visit our website unfazedpodcast.com to find all the old and the new shows, y'all. We're well over 250 now. So if you like this week's episode, please subscribe, download, leave a review, share this with your friends, coworkers, parents, and others in this phase of your life. So until next time.
All right. See you next time.